Ladies and gentlemen, before I can get a chair, to avoid wasting time, I will introduce this new panel dedicated to land forces in an environment we talked about this morning in length, which is becoming more and more difficult politically. And when it breaks, when it reaches the conflict, well, most of the time it takes place on land, even though we addressed the Air Force issue this morning. Tomorrow it will be on the Navy's. This environment, these other environments are very determining factors, but war is won on land because that's where human beings live. And here we have people in charge in this panel. They're really people responsible for conducting the operations their land forces have to carry out, and also responsible to prepare the war that's ahead of us. So it's a very, very heavy responsibility, especially in our times. So I thank them for taking some of their time to come here and exchange with you, to talk about, to present their vision of what their life is like in this field. So we have two Chief of Staff, General Pierre Schill, French, General Angelos Choudiloulis, Greek, Chief of Staff of the Hellenic Army. We have Lieutenant General Paulo Pereira, Commanding Officer of the Portuguese Land Staffs, Land Forces. And it also is partners. Forgive me, Major General Rafael Colomer Martinez del Peral, who's Vice Commander of the Spanish Land Forces, and Lieutenant General Salvatore Camparole, the commander of the Italian Land Forces, and then lastly Colonel Cucos Cesar, also commander of the Land Forces, but in Romania. So just to finish this introduction of the round table, so I will shift to English since everybody speaks English on this stage. So if you need the translation in French, please wear your headset.
In our area, there are currently two wars going on. The Israel-Hamas war, which is on the headline right now, which is more or less, military speaking, a classical asymmetric conflict with a particular problem of urban warfare, which is a real specificity, and the risk of collateral damage and the associated information warfare. That's, if I would like to sum up what's this kind of warfare, I'm not an expert, you are the expert, but it's what I would like to say. The other big war is the Ukraine war, high intensity war, which raises the question of at the same time the quality, because you have a peer-to-peer war, and so quality of armament, quality of capabilities, and at the same time quantity, because you have a lot of losses, quantity in armaments, in people, in men, and so quality and quantity. So my question is very clear, but at the same time very large. What is, for each army, your analysis of these two conflicts, and what are the consequences it draws for the future? In strategic terms, what does that mean in strategic terms, but also in terms of conduct of operations, in terms of capability requirement and development. That's it. Simple question, difficult to answer, but en général,
Thank you very much, Admiral, for welcoming us. And thank you very much to my comrades from the land forces of the countries of the southern part of Europe to have taken time to come today to talk about this topic. As you mentioned, there is a moment, and we are in a place, the southern border of Europe, in which we are in the same boat, and so we need to move. And as you mentioned, we are in charge, so this is not only it is needed to do, but I say I will tighten the links between our armies and propose to do so in order to be able to propose for our countries to be able to take into account either the security of the collective defense in NATO and Europe and the involvements toward the Mediterranean Sea and the southern bank of the sea and even further. So my first point is to stress again, even if it's obvious, that there is a time and we are in the same boat because we are in the same place. There is a time because of the technological revolution, because of the increasing separation of the world between the north and the south, because of the coming back of the war, and you mentioned at the eastern part of Europe and also in the Middle East. This time leads us to, we absolutely need to move forward because we are entering a new strategic era, and so it is urgent that we move toward new solutions. And the space in which we are is gathering our armies and our countries because we are on the border. So we are in Europe, we are in NATO, and so we are concerned by the question of collective defense against the threat of Russia. But we are also toward the outside, and we have special links, special knowledge, special history, and special responsibilities toward a new space. And it's why I would say we are in the same boat. My second point is, as we are in the same boat, I think we must work in a way that, and this is a strategic response, we must be able to have some links that will allow us to propose to our states, nations, to have a like-minded appreciation of the situation within NATO and toward the outside. And so on the coming years, I propose to my comrades, and I will work from my side to give this opportunity to have a common strategic response. This response, as I mentioned, we are on the border, needs to be turned toward the north, and toward the north there is a moment because NATO is reorganizing its land forces through what is called the NFM, the new force model of NATO, in which the big idea of secure and the big idea of NATO is now it's for real. It's not only declaration of forces, but we must have a layout and create a layout that will be for war. And so you the countries, you the nations, you the armies, you need to be prepared to build real units, corps, division, brigades, able to fight in Europe. And so, because of the countries who are on the border of NATO are defending their soil and creating the corps who will be at the window of NATO toward the east, as we are the second line, even if some of us are closer to the first line, we will be asked to do something together to create some units in order to defend NATO. But at the same time, we must be prepared to be involved in and to propose solutions in other directions, including the border of the Mediterranean Sea, the questions of the Mediterranean Sea, including immigrations, but also the questions of Middle East and so on, and further, as we ever did, and we ever done, and we will do again toward Africa, Middle East, and also Indian Ocean. And in that point of this coalition, giving the opportunity to create, to propose to the political coalition of the willing by having some special links and interoperability between our armies. We are at the moment mostly working on a bilateral point of view, and I think we more and more are requested to have some kind of a multilateral capability to act in order to be able to propose some solution to our nations. So we are in the same boat. There is a moment, there is a time. We must give a strategic answer that is the opportunity to have some kind of better links towards our armies in order to be some kind of a coalition, permanent coalition of the willing. And how to do this, and this is my last point, I think there is a question of power. You have mentioned these high intensity wars that are in front of us. We have seen that the war between Russia and Ukraine is the symbol of the high intensity war. But what is needed in this war is also needed in other conflicts on the coming years, and what we see in the Gaza Strip is exactly the same. Only to take an example, that a kid toy destroyed a Merkava tank, who is the most powerful tank we have in the world, just by dropping a grenade. So we must find the ability, the tools in order to protect against drones, against air threats and so on. So the power. The second step we must do is about adaptability and also the ability to be polyvalent, because we are once again at the border. We need to be able to go toward the highest fight, collective defense, but also to some other involvement. And we won't be able to go out of this double standard we need to have. And so the final and the way to do it is about interoperability, and we know that interoperability is a question of equipment. This is possible. This is a question of procedures. We must work on this. This is a question of knowledge and exchanges and common knowledge at the highest level, and this is what we do today also, but also at staff level, units level, and so on. So I think there is a time we must move. We are in the same boat, and so we have to give opportunities, to build opportunities in order to be able to face the strategic future of our continent. And as we are on the border, it may be either on the collective defense or at the same time on the southern part, so by more interoperability.
Thank you. General.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, just speak.
I'm okay? Okay, thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, generals, esteemed colleagues, initially I would like to thank the Chief of the French Army, my friend Pierre, for inviting the Hellenic Army at this emphatic event. I am impressed by the organization, the quality of the speakers, and the detailed presentation. Thanks a lot. And furthermore, I would like to salute the distinguished speakers in this round table, all friends from the south of Europe. For myself, it's a great honor to stand before you today as the Chief of the Hellenic Army, and a great pleasure to participate at this gathering of distinguished leaders and experts from across South Europe. Convergences and cooperative efforts among South European nations regarding land security and defense is a topic of the paramount significance, becoming even more important as we assess the security situation in this region. In the region where history and heritage are in their twinned with where the seas have connected us for centuries and where our cultures have flourished, it is the only natural that our security concerns and shared aspirations unite us more than ever before. In this dialogue, it is imperative that we acknowledge the unique strengths and challenges each of our nations bring to the table. We are not isolated entities, but integral parts of the larger whole with a collective interest in the security and prosperity of South Europe. Our region, with its diverse landscapes, cultures, and histories, has over time faced an array of challenges. We are no strangers to the territorial disputes, political complexities, and an ever-evolving security landscape. The Mediterranean, with its strategic significance, has often been at the crossroads of global and regional conflicts. The environment that there is around the Mediterranean presents a complex and dynamic security landscape. South Europe boasts a rich tapestry of landscapes, from mountain ranges to coastlines, and from bustling urban centers to remote, scarcely inhabited areas. Such diversity demands a comprehensive approach to security that considers the unique characteristic of each terrain. South Europe, with its extended coastlines and proximity to key regions in Africa and Middle East and Eastern Europe, as you said before, is exposed to a multitude of challenges. In recent years, the security paradigm in South Europe has witnessed significant transformation. Traditional notions of security, based mainly on territorial defense, have evolved into more complex and interconnected concepts, such as transnational threats such as terrorism, organized crime, and illegal migration, traverse these diverse landscapes. The emergence of hybrid warfare and cyber threats adds an additional layer of complexity to the security environment. Furthermore, the aeroterrestrial domain is not confined to traditional land borders. The proliferation of unmanned aerial systems and the ever-increasing importance of space-based assets introduce new dimension to our security concern. That means we put not only the land, but also the domain of the space. Thus, the terrestrial security landscape is marked by both conventional and unconventional challenges, all interconnected and interdependent. Today, we stand at a crossroads where unity and cooperation among South European nations are not just desirable, but imperative. This is something that we have to think about. The challenges we face do not recognize borders. In this new security landscape, our collective strength, resilience, and adaptability will determine our ability to secure our region and protect our citizens. Our land forces have always been the fundamental pillar on which the existence, development, and prosperity of our nations were built and will continue to be based upon. In this context, we must express our strong commitment because we know, we want, and we can. We know the historical significance of our region, from the ancient city-states to the great empires that shaped the course of history. We know the strategic importance of South Europe with its vital air corridors, maritime routes, and geopolitical influence. This knowledge underscores the need for collective and cooperation in addressing the challenges that affect all of us. We also know that the challenges we came across today are multifaceted. They range from state-based threats to non-state actors, from traditional warfare to asymmetric and hybrid threats. They encompass threats in the terrestrial, aerial, and space domain. To address these challenges effectively, we must be well-informed and well-prepared. We want a South Europe that can thrive in an environment of peace, stability, and prosperity. We want our nations and our citizens to be safe from threats, whether originating from the ground, the air, or even from space. We want to harness the potential of our region and the leverage for the common good. Our shared aspirations to create a secure and prosperous South Europe are achievable, but they require commitment, cooperation, and innovation. We must adapt to the evolving nature of threats, embracing modernization and interdisciplinary approaches. We can achieve these goals. We can forge stronger bonds among our defense forces. We can share intelligence, expertise, and best practices. We can conduct joint training activities and combined exercises that enhance our interoperability, as my friend Pierre said. We can invest in cutting-edge technology and capabilities that allows us to address emerging threats effectively. We can establish a collective security framework that reflects the realities of our region. By working together, we can ensure that South Europe remains a cradle of civilization and a beacon of stability, even in an aeroterrestrial landscape fraught with complexity. There are several key areas that deserve our attention. Developing a shared understanding of transnational threats and coordinating efforts to counter them. We must collectively assess the evolving threats in our region and develop the shared understanding to the challenges we face. We should work towards aligning our strategic interests, ensuring that our defense policies complement each other and contribute to the regional stability. We are not far from that, as we all are members of regional and international organizations such as NATO and the European Union. Timely and secure sharing of intelligence is crucial. In the fight against common threats, we must explore ways to enhance that cooperation. By conducting joint exercises and adopting common standards, we can improve the interoperability of our armed forces, making us more effective in responding to crises. Investment in research and development for modern and sophisticated defense capabilities, including advanced surveillance and early warning systems, as well as technology sharing, can enhance our capabilities and prepare us for future challenges. Collaborative efforts in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operations can not only save lives, but also strengthen regional bonds and build trust. Climate change poses a significant threat to our region. We should explore ways to address its implications on the aeroterrestrial domain, including changes in sea levels, extreme weather events, and resource competition on security proactively. Developing a unified approach to crisis management and conflict resolution is essential for regional stability. Supporting each other in the development and the enhancement of defense capabilities can strengthen the resilience of our nations. In conclusion, the road ahead is challenging, but the path to success is clear. Through open dialogue, mutual respect, and shared commitment, we can overcome the multifaceted challenges that define the aeroterrestrial security landscape of South Europe. I look forward to the insightful discussions and cooperative initiatives that will emerge from this roundtable. By working together, we can make significant strides towards achieving our shared vision of the secure, united, and resilient South of Europe. Thanks a lot for the time. I hope that the question is quite long, and my answer was long as well. Thanks a lot.
It's okay. Thank you. Thank you, General Perrin.
Thank you and for the organization, for this amazing perspective and possibility to talk about the land approach. General, thank you to receive in your country the Portuguese representative. My goal is to provide our view. And the first point I want to stress, and the General Semad have already addressed, is there is no longer peace operations. There are or war. And that is the change of the mindset that we need to put together. And we are not in an environment, if we talk in informational, if we talk in military, if we talk in technological, there is no more peace enforcement, only. We need to be focused, as the General said, in two ways. First one is the kinetic war, and that is our key, is our core. The second one is the approach to asymmetric, informational, cyber, everything that comes together. One of the things that I want to talk about is the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean is a way of two things, of crossing and of unity. And we in the North, as the General comes to say, we need to cooperate, we need to collaborate, we need to assign, we need to be interoperable. We need to use all organizations that we have, EU, NATO, put NATO looking at South. But South doesn't end on the north part on the south part of Sahel. Perhaps the key point that we have now is to have presence that blocks the influence for North to prevent what we have. And then is not, the war is won on earth, on land. Sorry for the Navy, sorry for the Air Force, but that is the reality. Ukraine showed to us, only land assured the victory. Israel is doing that. But what we need to be more precise is to be present and to use things as strategic initiative that France launched in 2018. Use European Union, European training missions. If you open a vacuum, others coming to occupy. And we are looking approach of mercenaries, of state organizations coming to places that might endanger our approach. We need to cooperate to give the ownership. But before that, we need to align ourselves. Technology is amazing. We need to use it in the most extension we can, but with criteria, with objective. Focus on what we want. Being multidimensional. And being multidimensional is to agreed to informational operations, to agree to humanitarian operations, to put them together and have an answer together. And that is the point that I want to stress. The Portuguese position is use 5+5, use strategic initiative, use European Union, use training missions, use the approach that we have with presence from the Atlantic to land, from land to Indic. That is the approach that we need to have in order to prevent and to address the roots of the problems and the threats that we have from South. At the same time, as the General very well said, we need to have armies with two directions, looking to a south and change the shift and looking to east. And that is war. So if we be prepared for war, we easily change the shift to south. So our focus is to interoperability. Our focus is to develop and have the same technology that our partners and allies and friends has. Use this technology. Use the tactical and procedures at tactical level, we forgot sometimes that the tactical level, if are not aligned, we can align the technology, then we cannot put the effects on the ground. To end, I want to stress that a common strategy on the Mediterranean, I have two directions, east and south. Have two positions, east heavy, south cooperative, present, and not allowing vacuums in the region. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you so much to the FMS for organizing this roundtable and for giving us the opportunity to discuss, to share, to listen, to learn about our ideas, about our solutions, threats, fears, and hopes related with the South Mediterranean. Each time is more and more difficult to avoid repeating the ideas of the concept of my predecessor with the floor, because I fully agree with all of them, particularly with the topic of interoperability. We are in the same boat and we are in the same place, and it is something that it is absolutely necessary. But I would like to start my short speech with a statement that perhaps is not very in the military environment, but I think that it is necessary to take it into account to understand the solutions that and the problems that we have. Europe needs international stability. If we want to continue with the welfare for our citizens, our life in democracy, in freedom, and to continue with that for the future, we need stability, international stability. And to tell the truth, I think that right now we are living a situation that has no precedent. All the periphery of Europe is facing instability, potential conflicts, or real conflicts, like it has been mentioned here with the war in Ukraine. Of course, NATO, European Union, all the countries present here, individually or in coalition, and trying to support Ukraine to recover their sovereignty, their freedom, and to allow them to have a future in democracy. At the same time, I think that we all agree that the main threat that we have now is in the eastern border of Europe. Russia is the real danger right now. But let's say, I feel somehow reassured, because I know that NATO is doing their task, and they have preparing a very reactive plans, and so that I think that we will be ready for the challenges that we can face. Of course, that all our countries are working hard to improve their capabilities and so on and so forth. But to tell the truth, for me, the real problem for those countries that are riverain to the Mediterranean, I think that we should pay more attention to the south. Because right now we know that there are some instability or conflicts in North Africa, for example, the growing tension between Morocco and Algeria, the situation in Syria, the situation in Libya, and additionally we have to reduce that tension. And at the same time, we have a real problem in all the Sahel and Gulf of Guinea region. And this is due to the circumstances, the situation of this area with porous borders, with very fragile states, with poverty, with a big impact of the environment, the degradation of environment, and so on. We have the breeding ground for terrorism, for illegal migration, for organized crime, and so on. And this problem is growing. And if we find a solution for that, we will suffer it in the let's say, middle term, and it will be could be an existential threat for us. So we have to pay attention to that. What is the difference? I think that related with the threat in the eastern border of Europe, more or less all the countries have a similar perception of the problem. Of course, it is not the same, the perception of the Baltic states, Spain, for example. It's different, but in the end, we have a similar approach and only one strategy for that. And we are ready for collective defense. The problem is that in our south, I think that the perception is quite different. The countries of the northern Europe don't understand our perception, that this is completely different, because it's clear, for example, in Spain, in a daily basis, we are receiving illegal immigration in the Canary Islands, or for Italy in Lampedusa, or in Greece with the Aegean Sea, or in the border with Turkey and Greece, and so on. So the question is that you know that the United States also has shifted their focus to China and Indo-Pacific. Of course that they keep an eye on the eastern border of Europe, but they are not really concerned about Africa. And my concern is that with this different perception of the threat, we should have an effort to make all the European countries to have the same understanding on what is on play. And in that way, I think that we have to work hard. For me, the good thing is that we have, at least, I think, all the countries represented here, we have a clear understanding of the problem. We have a real problem. And I fully agree with you, sir, with that. But the question is that at the time being, I'm not so sure, we know that we have a problem, but I'm not so sure if we have the solution. From the military point of view, I fully agree with your statements and so. But the question is that, to my mind, if we create a sanitary cordon, if we encapsulate the problem that we have in the south, we will have a temporal or interim solution. But we have to take into account always that stability needs security, good governance, and economic development. If we don't, not the military, our countries, if they don't impulse or apply an integral solution, taking into account all these factors, we won't find the solution. We will say for one time, perhaps we will succeed, but in the long term, the problem will continue growing and growing. We have to fight also with the sources of the problem. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First of all, I would say thank you to the Chief of the French Army, General Schill, and to FMS for inviting the Italian Army to this very important event. The current geopolitical scenario is very well known. It's not easy to talk for fifth because the risk is to repeat some concept. But the geopolitical scenario places in a central position the so-called, in Italy we call it wider Mediterranean, a space where critical issues with historical roots intersect with hybrid threats and conflicts of a varying intensity. And the Mediterranean region constitutes the southern flank both for NATO and EU, and this very simple concept is reflected in NATO 2022 strategic concept, and as well as the EU strategic compass. The adoption of the new security construct represented by the NATO new force model and the approval of the regional defense plans, instruments that will significantly increase the alliance's capacity and readiness to express deterrence and defense against any risk, place a specific focus on threats coming from both the east and the south of Europe. In South Europe, we well know that there is a proliferation of terrorist groups often favored by destabilizing interference by strategic competitors. NATO's and EU's southern neighborhood faces interconnected security challenges, often exacerbated by the impact of climate change, fragile local institutions, health emergencies, and food insecurity. NATO itself considers terrorism in all its forms and manifestations as the most direct, asymmetric, and transnational threat to the security of Euro-Atlantic citizens and to the international peace and prosperity. In a few words, our attention to the dynamics of the southern flank is essential due to the obvious impacts on our individual and collective security, and because a significant part of the game for the future global balances will be played there. Finding a common line among all of us remains challenging, but it's a fact that the approach to the Ukraine crisis has shown that the EU and NATO itself can indeed speak with one voice. We are all in the same boat, but I'm a tanker. I hope that we will be in the same tank. The main growth is better, yes. It's better for an army officer, for a tanker. Due to the Russia-Ukraine war, there is a completely different approach from the past 20 years, because we are coming from 20 years of peace support operations, and we discovered last year that war is in Europe, is at our doors. And this is a fact that is affecting also our training of junior leaders and so on, because we have a generation of officers, NCOs, and soldiers that have been employed in peace support operations in many different missions, but all peace support operations. So we had to change our mind in a war-fighting approach. For this reason, last year, the Italian Minister of Defense published new policy and strategy documents that emphasize both Italy's official position within the main international organization and the importance of modernizing the armed forces to meet future challenges. In particular, Italy's contribution to the security of the so-called wider Mediterranean is expressed in two dimensions. The operational dimensions, through the relevant participation in NATO and EU operations, in order to ensure the political stability of the area with a security framework that makes it possible to cope with illegal migrations. You were talking about illegal migration because you have talked about Lampedusa. Thousands of people every year arrive in Lampedusa, and it's never so easy to understand if among those people there are terrorists or people that are not so friendly with our nations and our values. Fight the terrorist threat, and at the same time favor the development of economic activities that are expressed in energy and trade cooperation. The second dimension is the cooperative one, based on structured international cooperation plans and mission like EUTM and so on. In this framework, with a view to the stabilization of the wider Mediterranean, the Italian defense, while maintaining the focus on the bilateral cooperation initiatives already in place, has intended to pay greater attention to the countries of the Horn of Africa and the Sahel, while also looking at another crucial region of the continent, the Gulf of Guinea, just said, with those countries of particular political, economic, military, and social relevance. In fact, there is currently a sub-Saharan belt stretching from Mauritania to the Gulf of Aden, encompassing Sudan and Somalia, and involving the Sahel and the entire area adjacent to the Maghreb, which is heavily influenced by terrorist activity. All groups
are inspired or linked to Al-Qaeda and Daesh, as well as other spontaneous formations connected to local rebellion. Just in time. What has happened in Sudan and Niger are just a few of the latest dangerous examples. Through the belt of Central Western Africa, and particularly throughout the Sahel, this continent could be split in two due to power vacuum, the endemic nature of illicit trafficking, terrorism, and the proxy forces of certain countries that we are sure are operating in many of these countries. The aim, of course, could be to destabilize the West and notably Europe. Moreover, this part of the world runs the risk of merging through the Sinai to the Middle East, Palestine, and Syria. And this could form a broader front and constitute an enormous crescent, not only ideologically, but also territorially, spanning from Afghanistan through the Middle East to Africa, and in a way encircling Europe and the West. This threat that has been exacerbated by the recent resurgence of the Palestinian matter and tension in Syria, in Lebanon, where I remember we have the UNIFIL mission. Italy is one of the most important contributors. There is a brigade over there that is still patrolling, still in these days. They are patrolling the blue line and space from the blue line to the Litani River, despite the continuous exchanging of fire between Hezbollah and Israel Defense Forces. I was saying this threat risks further straining the Western alliance that is already deeply concerned for the war in Ukraine and its consequences for the entire NATO and European system. In a few words, it is increasingly evident that the future dynamics of jihadist terrorism will naturally find their stage in Europe. The stated aim is to fuel the feeling of insecurity within a society that seeks to protect the European identity, opposed to the emergence of a radicalism that seeks to associate itself with immigration and the integration of diverse populations in a continent with such low demographic growth. Therefore, it would be particularly important for the West to observe what is happening in opposition to its model of international order, which is the strengthening autocracies and the non-democratic system. All this cannot disregard either the launch of a profound renewal of the military instruments, of all our instruments, making it fully integrated and able to participate effectively in the new confrontation. For example, in the cyberspace, cyber domain and space domains, fundamental enablers for all operations, or the preservation of the ability to operate effectively in traditional domains, consolidating concrete combat capabilities, readiness, projectability, logistical sustainability, and overall effectiveness. Easy to say, much harder to do, but thank you, General, for your initiative to strengthen our links among us, countries of the southern flank of Europe and the NATO. Thank you.
Bonjour à tous. Good afternoon. I'm Colonel Cezar Cucoș, Romanian Land Component Command Chief of Staff. General Pierre Schild, Admirals, Generals, General Director Pascal Auster, officer and distinguished audience. This is a great honor for me to be in front of you today at this important forum speaking about current issues and challenges regarding the military domain. We appreciate that France is hosting the conference in the wonderful city of Toulon on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, and I want to thank you for this special invitation. European security is closely linked to security and stability in the Mediterranean region, including the Middle East and North Africa. Therefore, the Mediterranean security dimension is certainly one of the most important components of the European security architecture. Nowadays, for Romania, the major challenges come from the situational awareness of the extending Black Sea region. But as a part of NATO and the European Union, my country cannot be indifferent to the security situation in the Mediterranean region in all its complexity, whether we are talking about threats related to illegal immigration, terrorism, cyber attack, or the current situation in the Western Balkans, or the war in the Gaza Strip. Distinguished audience, today I have the opportunity and the honor to be at this roundtable with some of the most important commanders and strategic leaders of the Europe armies, outstanding officials who led the land forces of France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Greece. From 2022, in order to strengthen the NATO eastern flank after Russian invasion into Ukraine, the French land forces are present in Romania with a battle group under the Multinational Division Southeast Command from Bucharest. This multinational battle group currently deployed in the Joint National Training Center from Cinque is able to quickly increase his combat capacity when needed. The Portuguese land forces are also permanently present deployed in Romania with a maneuver company within a multinational brigade southeast. The Portuguese special forces are in Romanian and trained together with the Romanian Special Operation Forces as well. Recently, the Spanish and Italian armies have declared their intention to deploy their forces and military equipment in our country for training. This is very important for us, of course. On the other hand, the Romanian land forces have staff officers and troops as part of a multinational operation battalion under Greece command in K4 mission in Kosovo. The Romanian army instructors are also part of the European Union Hellbrook battle group, together with the Hellenic, Bulgarian, and Cypriot troops under the command of Greece as framework nation. Last but not least, the Romanian Navy forces are involved in the Operation Sea Guardian led by NATO in Mediterranean Sea. If we also take into account the current consistent presence of Romanian troops in the theater of operation in Bosnia and Herzegovina with several hundred soldiers, we consider that all this is a real and clear proof that both in the Black Sea region and that of the Mediterranean Sea, we are together, we train together, and we assume the mission together. This is a great opportunity for us to develop joint warfighting capabilities and to conduct mission under operation under a command control system as well, a huge challenge for integrating and operating our forces in a complex, multinational and multicultural environment. All this action demonstrates that our countries have the ability and availability to put together military capabilities, to train in a unique concept able to respond to the current challenges that could affect the security of entire Europe. I gave you only few examples of our cooperation. All in all, the Romanian land forces welcomes France's initiative to promote such an academic dialogue between the Mediterranean countries, and not only, but from a civil and military perspective, and appreciate this partnership forum that aims to contribute to security and stability in the Mediterranean region, developing good relations and common understanding between participating countries. This concludes my short intervention. Thank you for your attention and pending question. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Colonel. Any reaction to what has been said? Or okay, I have a question a little bit more tactical, but interesting for the common mortal, I would say. The counter-offensive in Ukraine seems to be in difficulties, and it's a land scenario that is well known now. Does that is there any significance, strategic or operative or capability significance for army responsibles that you are on this failure? What does that mean precisely? What lacks Ukraine army to succeed in this counteroffensive? Do you have in your army the ability to carry on such a counteroffensive or not? Well, what does that mean for you?
During the FMS, RSMED, there is a forum you organized saying that it seems that offensive is overtaking defense now. I think this is exactly the opposite of what we, but the other can answer, think on the land forces perspective. At the moment, the defensive is overtaking the capability of offensive. And the difference may be that you are talking from a standoff perspective. That means penetrating the enemy defense by some offensive from a distance assets has the advantage now because of the technology. But taking the territory of the other is more difficult now than defending the terrain. This is a general assessment. It could be discussed. When it comes to the Ukrainian example you have given, I think there is a real question. I have this question for my country now. Is it because the Ukrainians are not able to use the means and the assets of the modern fight as we should be able to use them as modern Western countries' armies, relying on the ability of initiative, the training of our officers, NCOs, the integrated multi-domain capabilities we are training for? Or is it because, in fact, when it is real war, and this is what the Ukrainians tells us, let's come, fight, take our equipment and try to cross the Russians' line? Is it because, in fact, we are in a false direction to think that combined maneuverist approach still have a future in the common life, on the new way of fighting? This is, I have a question there. I think I will have only a short answer to say, I think we must rely on the fact that by combining all the assets we have on the new joint world, and the new word for joint is integrated, is multi-domain, still give the opportunity, if you have the good ratio of force, to break through the enemy layout. And let's see what the Israelis are doing in Gaza Strip. That could be a counter-example of this question in Ukraine. But there is a real question behind this.
I would like, I have discussed many times with my counterparts, saying that in Europe, in general, we have forgotten the real military operations because we rely on a task force that is combined for a certain operation, and then we use to send it somewhere to conduct an operation and return back. This was not the case for the Greek armed forces, as we continue to conduct the traditional military operations, and this is the way that we combine the exercise with our partners within NATO in general, but not only. in our training areas. We continue to conduct this operation since our existence, and we believe that it is the operation that it needs the techniques, the normal techniques that we learn from the military academies. Of course, it needs a lot of means, a lot of assets, a lot of power. But on the other hand, if you have a well-trained team, unit, brigade, division, it's very difficult for somebody to come and take part of your area. That means in that certain area, there was lack of training, there was lack of technology, and there was lack of command and control. Of course, the assessment that one part has for the other, it was also a little bit outdated. It was not so. If you see what is going on now in Israel, it's something totally different. It is not a typical military operation. It's totally different. Now, turning back to your question, I believe that now, due to the winter, due to the continuation of that war, the losses, it needs time to be solved. But the message is that we have to continue to be trained to the typical military operations as we learned decades back in our military academies. Thanks a lot.
I want to come back to multi-domain. And I think when multi-domain was born as a strategic concept. What we are seeing in Ukraine and the high-level intensity wars that we need to be prepared to is the multi-domain needs to be generalized until all levels. Because we are talking about informational, we are talking about cultural awareness, we are talking about human rights actions, we are talking about conjunction of political, of capability, of health and support. We are talking about new dimensions that come to the theater. Land will continue to be the field where everything is going. And the conjunction of these new dimensions, where no one is out, no service is out, no service is less important than the other, brings to the informational environment, brings to this kind of conflict and the answer that we need to put together, more effective unity that needs to start at strategic level and needs to go down to formation, to leadership, to everything that is key on the theater, is what I want to add. Thank you.
Well, I think that all of us are, let's say, a little bit disappointed because the Ukrainian forces have not achieved the success that we expected. But, of course, multi-domain operations, high technology, and all these kind of things are absolutely necessary in the modern warfare. But in any case, I would like to advocate again for Ukraine, and particularly for, at least for me, it was a lesson to learn again that the central for the army is the soldier. At the beginning of the war, nobody could think about the resistance of the Ukrainian armed forces. And they gave us a lesson. We can't forget that the best technology in the hands of a soldier that has not the courage to defend his country is pointless or useless. So I think that no matter the technology that we can have on our hands, we should never, ever forget the relevance of the morale of our soldiers. And we have to fight continuously to keep that and to improve and improve and improve, because I think it's seminal for the success of the land forces.
Thank you. Yes, you are absolutely right. I think that we are seeing a war that Russian and Ukrainian are fighting with modern technologies, but at the same time they are using the same ancient principle of the war that are always the same. Morale, as you just said, maneuver, mass, surprise, and so on. That's the reason why we are certainly learning a lot from the Ukrainian war, especially in terms of the combined arms. Multi-domain is a very big concept, staying just in the land dimension. I think that combined arms and mission command, or Auftragstaktik, as German says, are the real game changer in this war. We are teaching to our junior leader, but also, as I said before, to our commanders that have been deployed and employed for 20 years in peace support operation. We are reteaching all the war-fighting principles, and at the same time insisting on mission command and the autonomous decision. In your Atlas 2022, the Italian defense in general is defined as having a rigid structure, poor initiative, and so on. Maybe it's true, or it was true, but I can say that we are working a lot on the new generations and the junior leaders in order to give them the right opportunity to express their fantasy as leaders and commanders that is necessary in such a complicated world and war fighting.
Somebody said in the morning panel that to win the war is necessary to have air superiority. I want to add an idea which not belong to me. If you want to win the war, it's mandatory to have the boots on the ground, and that means new capabilities, and new capabilities means equipment, manpower, training, command control, and interoperability. That issues are the same for Ukrainian army or for Romanian army or whatever.
Okay, thank you. Maybe another reaction.
May I just add a word by paying tribute to the Ukrainian Joint Chief of Staff. He released a very, very interesting paper last week, 10 days ago, about the situation and about the innovation or the assets or the means he needs to make the difference in front of the Russians, taking into account the situation in which he is now. And very, very interesting paper. We are studying it because he is in charge, he is at war, and so the assessment he makes is very, very important for us. Even if we must look at this situation very carefully, because there are some elements that are the elements that can be taken for us, but there are also some elements that are typical of this region of the world. So let's take a little bit more distance with the events, but I mentioned this paper, very, very interesting.
Yes, thank you very much. You answered quite a lot of the questions who were more or less on the screen. There is one specific question which has been several times pushed, is the connection, the impact of probably the French nuclear dissuasion deterrent on such a cooperation. How to, bon, it is raised, so I raise to you probably mon général. But I have another one which is more in line with what we discussed before, or you discussed before. It is what could be the capacity breakthrough which can make the difference?
So I used to say a common joke, saying that there is no supermarket to buy things. So whatever we have to improve, we need time. And so I agree with you that we need 5 to 10 years if we want to change something, I mean in systems, but also if we want to train our staff in order to use them precisely. I totally agree with Pierre saying that the third dimension, the air, is something that we have to take into account in the near future. Even now, we are working very hard, all of us, either bilaterally or multilaterally. So this is something that we have to deal with very soon, because the survivability to survive the very first days of an operation is very, very crucial. But also to sustain the sustainability, it's something also very crucial. But in order to get all those systems, you need money. And you have in front of you somebody who, my country spends more than 2% of our GDP for many years. It's very expensive to keep your armed forces intact and ready to operate. It's too expensive. It's an expensive sport if you want to have real armed forces. So what is the vision for the next 5 or 10 years? First of all, we have all, as Europeans or NATO countries, we have to find out how to be in the same level, to be all our systems to work together, the interoperability that we discussed from the very first moment, to train together. That means the command and control to be easy. If you have a Greek commander and you have a French brigadier general and Italian division commander, should have the same way of understanding, and that means we need common training. The common training needs time. That means common training, spending money, and to take care of the air. Plus the space, as I mentioned in the very beginning. It is not only there, but also the space. Every day, every time, if you see on the air there are a lot of things going around, that means they have a clear view what you are doing. So you have to cover also yourself by space. This is some views from my side. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We have still 5 minutes. If you want to add something, you can, sure.
Just one comment. I fully agree with your statements, and of course that anticipation is something that we need, because you can go to the supermarket to get some helicopters or tanks and so on. But even in the best case, I think that surprise will be impossible to avoid in some cases, so we need also to work in resilience. I think that our capacity to recover from surprise is paramount also.
Very, very quickly, I think that the infantry commander, a commander of an infantry company or platoon, is the most difficult job in the army. Because in order to operate in combined arms, as I was saying, this lieutenant or captain must be able to manage, of course, his platoon or infantry company, and then the cavalry possibility in reconnaissance, maybe using drones, and then the artillery fire, the engineering capability, the signal in order to communicate. A normal man and not a Superman can't do all these things at the same time without any help from artificial intelligence and so on. So I think that the real in 5-10 years, as you said, we must improve all those capabilities that can help people, soldiers, young commanders, to manage the land space, the land dimension in the multi-domain. And this is really a scaring mission for all of us.
I fully agree with everyone, but I will take the point that the man, the human resource, and I only want to add the young human resource. We cannot think our future without understand perfectly that my lieutenants are thinking and facing the things differently that I think when I was lieutenant. So I need to break that point and be adapting more and more to their point, their mindset. And that is one of the breaking through that we need to have.
Well, thank you very much, generals. Just one word to say, one thing strikes me. I guess I'm not alone. I can feel the weight on your shoulders, the way you raise the issues of the preparation of the next war on land. Personally, I can feel that you are the seriousness, the gravity of your tones and the way you try to precise your ideas shows us that we all know that, but we can feel it. The probability of occurrence of a combat and for the people who are under your commands are much higher today than it used to be 5 or 10 years ago. I think the mood would have been completely different in such a panel 10 years ago. I'm old enough to say that because I participate to this kind of panel. Thank you very much for your exchange. Thank you.